Doesn't matter if you have one closing or 20 closings this month. For that client, it's the only one.
Welcome back to Podcast on Wheels. I'm Brian Smith, and today in studio, we've got a real treat for you. We've got a guy who's from the area. He's a football star. He's a real estate guy. He's a businessman. And Nick Holman, the coolest thing about you, brother, is you've always been right here. So welcome to the studio. That's the most excited I could get him, guys.
Yeah.
There we go. They're a little excited.
Here we go. There's some football in there.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate the invite. I think it's super. I know I was just talking about that, but super cool what y'all have done with this place. You and Courtney, this is a really cool concept, and excited to be here. Chat it up a little bit.
Awesome. Thank you for coming. And Nick's been patient with us as we've been able to get this show scheduled, working around some things. But the Holman Group, that's what you have now. So tell us a little bit about the Holman Group.
Yeah, absolutely. I started the Holman Group 2 or 3 years ago, local real estate firm, right? And I just noticed as I was new in the whole real estate thing, right? I'm like, there's all these different ways that people do the business. And, I really noticed early on that I started during COVID, started selling houses during COVID. So it was like, I get my license and literally a week later, you're like, okay, so you can't go in houses, you can't go with anyone, you just got to figure it out, right? So we started using social media pretty proactively and all that. And then quickly after, we started a team about a year later. The main thing that we really try to do, and it's our number one core value now, we've really hammered down on that this year, is, when you're loving on people and when you're creating, great programs and great offerings for people that are coming to you, number one, the business naturally flows. And number two, your clients are always going to love you, which means they're going to come back. So we're real, not just like a lot of people say client experience focused, right? But we're very, very heavily focused on, building relationships, right? Your sphere of influence, the way that you interact with people, like all the things that and like some of our new agents now, they're like, wow, this guy's a maniac. But even like when you get to the house, what do you say? How do you interact with the people from the first time you talk to after a closing? So we're real obsessed with that. So I think, the Holman Group has been kind of it's been a lot of different things over the first few years, but we're definitely at a point now where, we have a lot of really great stuff going on. And and just like I said, social media, the videos that we do, we're doing a lot of really fun new stuff this year with that. So I'm excited about that.
Awesome. And you've got a few team members that help you. But here's what I see. When I see your guys, and I know a few people that work with you and for you, I don't think you say work for you.
We say because it's a 1099 independent, you don't want to have them feel like they're employees.
Yeah.
Because when we tell them too, you're an entrepreneur within our platform.
Mm-hmm.
We call it a platform.
And that's the cool thing about you. It's you have a team, and I see the fun stuff on social media.
Yep.
Or, there was a point in time I was like, maybe I could go be a part of the Holman Group. I would have liked to have played golf over there.
You could do that. We are recruiting.
I hear you.
We're adding a few people this year.
I hear you. So that's where we were going. Like, if you're recruiting somebody, how would somebody even know where to start? Like, real estate, I want to do that. What would they do?
Well, so there's, and this is really new for this year. There's a lot of different ways that people look at the real estate business, right? Some people, let's say it's a brand new real estate agent. So over here, you have brokerages where there's not much paid to them. So it's a low cap. They're not paying that much to this brokerage. So the brokerage is like, thanks for joining. Here's a binder. Have fun.
Yeah.
Go do your thing.
Yep.
You're like, and a lot of these new agents, right? They're like, well, but what do I do? And the brokerage is like, here's your binder, have fun, and get to it. Which for some people, like for me, I was at a good brokerage when I started, had a lot of support. So some people are a little more naturally driven, and they're going to be like able to go and kind of figure it out on their own. Figure it out ability. That's what we call it. We test people for that before which I'm recruiting a few people right now where I don't want to, if they ever see this, I don't want them to realize, but like, little things like, for instance, when we start recruiting them, we don't text them back on purpose. If they never text me back, then we just don't continue. Because if they don't text back, that means they're not going to follow up with leads. or people that could be in their business, opportunities to walk past them every day. So that's option A. Option B, a lot of real estate teams or some brokerages, but mostly like when people hear the word group or team in real estate, well, a lot of these places, including myself, probably a couple of years ago, think of it like, let's just do everything for the agents. And then when they come in, they should just be able to just call these people, go sell some houses. And the leads come in from all these different, bunch of random different places like Zillow or Realtor or Homes.com, all the places you search for a home, right? So we fit in kind of in between those. So we're for people who they're a little more entrepreneurial than people who want to feel and do that kind of team experience where you're basically just opening doors. And we're a little bit, so we're a little bit less kind of strict than that, but we're a little bit more supportive than your brokerage, just like, here's binder, have fun. And so what we're looking for and what we found in a lot of these people, like some of our agents that do really well, is more structure and also more freedom. So in between those two, you find, and there's a lot of people in the real estate space, they're getting more popular now. We call them teamerages. It's kind of like a mix between a team and a brokerage.
Yeah.
So we kind of fit in between. And it's really good for new agents who are entrepreneurial. And it's also good for realtors who are selling 10 to 12 houses a year that want to sell 20. And they want a little bit less, not less to do, but they want to really get clear. And that's kind of what we're helping these agents with, is like, they're doing all these different things. They're going here, they're going there, they're making all this stuff, but like, how many appointments are they going on? How many real relationships are they making? And with those, what are they doing to make sure that they're providing value up front? So yeah, that's, if you were a new agent, that's exactly how we would communicate, is like, you really have a few options when you're new. You can go somewhere, pay them nothing and get nothing. You can go somewhere, pay them like a whole lot, and you're going to get opportunities, but is it sustainable? Is it somewhere you want to be for a long time? And is it, like with these companies like Zillow, Realtor, what happens if those companies just decide, I'm a huge technology nerd, I'm kind of a computer nerd, I'm like, what happens when those companies say, hey, we don't really want to send this stuff to y'all anymore. We're actually just going to hire, Zillow, Realtor, that's whatever you want to call it. And they're going to go show a house and sell it for $100. So then those people are kind of like, what are we going to do? And we'll still have a place, because it's, again, we're creating and nurturing relationships over and over and over again. And that's really our kind of unique value proposition for realtors. And it took me about 2.5 years to figure that out, because I basically tried all three. I was like, at first, like, you come here, here's a binder, do whatever. And then I went to more of like, let's provide all this opportunity. But then you realize people get into real estate and other businesses, like, what y'all do, all these different industries, because they want to have their own business, right? They didn't get their real estate license to be an employee. And so that's where, especially starting this year, I'm like, there's got to be a different way to help these people actually accomplish what they want to do. And that's where teams like us, groups, whatever, like us, fit in.
So, and seeing your team and your group and evolve, and you've had some people there for how long have you had some people a part of this team?
We've had, and that's another thing. We tell agents as we're talking to them now, we're talking to a lot of people that are already licensed, not just new agents, but we're looking to create an experience where it's a platform where they really feel like, if you want to sell houses, as long as you want to sell them, you could work with us. And so, I mean, we've had agents. I started the team about 3 years ago, and I've had agents that have been with me since then. And that's in the real estate industry. I know you've probably had some people in real estate in here already, but I mean, it's a revolving door. It's like people join here, then they're like, oh, this sucks, and then boom, hit there, and it's right. They're always looking for that greener grass. And so we believe that the grass is greener where you water it. And if we're watering it, then it should be good.
Well, I guess, let's tell people, how old are you?
28.
Okay, 28.
28 and feeling good.
18?
Yeah, feeling great.
You look great. You look great. Physically, phenomenal shape. But again, mentally, business savvy, understanding. 2.5 years for a business owner to develop his group, evolve the group, maintain some people for that amount of time, have them give the feedback that you probably sometimes may or may not have wanted to hear, or things come up. But
Yep.
the one thing that, we were talking before the show, and we've known each other for a few years and worked out a few times and talked about working out while we were at the gym.
Yep.
There you go.
But that's when we both looked a little different, and I haven't transformed quite as much as you. We'll get to
You're
that.
looking good.
I'm trying to keep up.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep
There
up. 45, it changes your mindset on things. I wish, which was my point, I wish I would have had your mindset of, because we had a conversation, like I joked with you at the intro of the show. You've been a linebacker on a football field at a Division I school.
Yep.
You've experienced, how many people have you played in front of?
I mean, my first start was at FSU.
Okay.
So that was what, 80-something thousand?
So
I was scared shitless. I remember because the guy who was he was a starter. He was like the third string.
Yeah.
At the time, I was
Yeah.
a freshman.
Okay.
And the starter got hurt, and the backup, I think he failed a drug test or something. Something happened. I don't know what it was.
Sure.
So my linebacker coach, he's like, "You're starting." This was 2 days before the game. I'm like, "Dude, I didn't even know I was on the bus. This is cool." And he's like, "Yeah, you're playing." I'm like, "So yeah," but that was about 80. I don't know. However many. What is it? Is it Doak Cameron?
Yeah.
Yeah. However many that holds.
So, and you've talked about, as we were talking pre-show, to bring this sustainability in the elderly wealthy guy we discussed, or this or this or this. But,
Yep.
I thought it was big when I got to play baseball in front of, 15,000 people. And when you compare, football brings in money, baseball, we all have to, until
It
you
brings
get
in big money
until
in
you
the- in the
until
big
you get
leagues.
here.
Yeah.
Right. But at the level I was at, I think, you paid more for the hot dogs than the tickets. But you've been in that environment. So what rattles you in this, and this, right? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a big advantage in business and just really in life in general from being being in athletics, because I mean, I always look at stuff and it's like, do you make mistakes when you're in business? Yes, right. I mean, I'm like, do you screw up, and do people, do you have, for instance, there was a time where I was growing the Holman Group. This is when we were doing a lot of, we were spending a lot of money, right, on lead generation, a lot of this stuff. And some of the client experience was kind of bad. And I had people calling me all day, and I'm like, I don't even know what's going on. And I think I could tell you the moment that something kind of changed in me was this was a month, I think it was in 2023, middle of 2023. And, we were trying to grow our business. We were wanting to do it good and all this stuff. And I had someone who was about to close on a house, was working with one of my agents that were at our team. And they called me, and the whole experience was terrible. It was just really not good. And I'm like, and when they called and I talked to him afterwards, I was like, number one, I know nothing about what was going on with them. I really didn't know them per se. And that was a big changing moment for me. And I'm like, no matter how big we get, I want to make sure that we're an experience that people, it's referable, it's the same, it's good, and also experience that people have a good time with. And that was, I could tell you the day, I don't remember the exact date, but I remember I was leaving some kind of networking thing or something. And I get that phone call, and I had referred that business to the agent. The agent, it wasn't really their fault, because I'm the leader of the company, so I'm not giving them the right direction. I never really made it clear, hey, when, this is how we do it. I didn't have a procedure or policy. And that was probably the only time in business that I really felt like, shit, this person, it was a nice home. I think it was $350,000 or something. So, not we forget sometimes, we're blessed to sell a lot of really expensive stuff, but it don't matter if it's a $20,000 cabin or a $2 million lake home. It's a big thing for people.
Right.
And I think that was the only time in my whole career that I was really like, shit, like, I wouldn't say shook. I was kind of shook, but that's when I really was like, this has got to go different. And then you talk about sustainability, because I'm like, if it don't go different, it ain't gonna last. It's
Right.
gonna be done, whatever. So
Right.
I think that was a big turning point. But also, yeah, I mean, also like when you're in athletics and then when you get into like business kind of stuff, like if something goes wrong, I literally, and our new agents think I'm a maniac about this, but like, let's say a deal falls out of escrow, it's no longer closing. Most people in our business are like, oh, that's terrible. This is so bad. And I'm like, dude, do you realize how much time you just got back? You have like so much opportunity to go and make the most of the time that you don't necessarily have to or get to, work with this exact situation.
Yeah.
Right? So I kind of believe everything works out the way it should. So I don't get as, I would say, as like, like a big, I have a relatively, again, like not super anxious personality, but I mean, I think that was that one moment in 2023. It took about a year probably for it to really get back into fruition the way I and we wanted it to be, probably second half of last year and really beginning of this year. But yeah, that's when I was like, what I'm doing it works. And like in our industry, you'll look and it'll be like, we were selling, I mean, that year we sold almost, that was my second year as a team. We sold about $30 million worth of houses, but it wasn't that great of an experience for a lot of people. And that's not a lot, but for some people, and that's where I really started to make those changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned whether it was this deal or this deal, and we're in a similar type business where we get paid commissions based on the amount of trust that person's putting in you because of the size of the deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a big trust thing.
Yeah. And to them, it's always a big deal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And, you shared a story with me one of the times we met before today about you kind of forgot you celebrated when your first deal or this deal. Tell that story real quick, because that kind of brings that to me. Like, you remembered those times.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it was when brand new. It was around COVID.
Yeah.
So like June, later that year. So I got licensed in February 2020, and first closing was in like June. Another funny story also within that same time frame. I went to this car dealership at Lynn Layton over in Decatur, and there was this little Cadillac. It was like what is it, the XT5?
Yeah.
The smaller one.
Uh-huh.
And it was in May, and the first closing was in June. And I same thing. I was like, I sit down, we go over the financing part, they show you the 3 payments or whatever. And the sales guy's like, so what's your yearly income? And I was like, you mean now or later? He's like, now. And I'm like, well, I got some closings coming up. He's like, so what has been your yearly income so far this year? And I'm like, 0. He's like, and you're trying to buy a car? Yeah, man, because like it's going to work. I promise it's going to work. And he's like, well, you can't just call a bank and say, I promise it's going to work. I'm like, yeah, that's probably true. Ended up getting the car somehow with a terrible interest rate. It's kind of funny. But that next month, ended up selling, I think it was 2 houses. And literally when both of those closed, it was like the biggest, I'm like, so, over the top pumped up, and ended up going, one of them ended up going to Chewy's over there on the Parkway.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, I'm drinking margaritas. And I don't even really drink that much. I drink less now than I did then. But yeah, I'm like, and so, yeah, it's again, as I kind of started to recalibrate what we want, the Holman Group and our experience to be, I'm like, you realize, people like in our industries, right? Like, last couple of years, we've averaged like around 100 homes a year. And you get to this point where every situation, it kind of becomes, you don't look at it that way. Right. But then I'm like, why the hell not? Like, especially like our new people. Like, we have a guy who he just joined 2 weeks ago, and he got his first listing from a lead, and he called him, and it's perfect. And the whole thing went perfect. The appointment went perfect. I'm like, get pumped up. This is an exciting experience. I think any industry that's like what we do, or where, you can grow your business pretty quickly. I think it's important to remember, just like I said, it's important to remember that for those people, it's a huge deal. And we said this yesterday at our Tuesday team meeting. We're like, it doesn't matter if you have 1 closing or 20 closings this month. For that client, it's the only one, probably for the next 4 or 5 years, statistically speaking. And so It's like, yeah, just, you look at it in industries like ours and you're like, it's okay. And you get so we all get so caught up in numbers and all that. And it's like, again, that's where our core value comes in. Number one is that when we love on people, the business is flowing. So like I have a client right now and we're, getting back into that, making sure the experience is excellent and making sure it's all as perfect as it can be. Some like real estate, but they're buying a home. It's the first time buying a house. We connected over a year ago and it's a pending sale currently. And, they're like, we're looking at the house and they're like, hey, we think we're going to like do a housewarming party. I'm like, oh, we could sponsor your housewarming party.
Yeah.
And like when all your friends come, like, obviously they're like, yeah. So like, actually, I have 2 other friends that need to buy a house right now. So industry like ours, you take that same situation. If I or someone that works with me or anyone who's a realtor, if we're, I actually learned this from Coach Burt. If we're too busy being fabulous over here, that client probably buys the house, may or may not buy with us. Maybe they do, but we're too busy being fabulous. We're not really that excited for them because we're worried about the next thing. And they definitely don't refer friends and they definitely don't at that housewarming party. And so just a lot of little stuff like that, where if you add those up on a daily basis, it becomes, and that's where we call it our framework. If you do those little things every day, it becomes exponential.
Yeah. And excuse me. Here's some feedback right here, and we'll get into this. So I meet you at the gym. You're a former college football player, got the Holman Group going. I see the social media. I'm following you. I'm keeping up with you. I'm like, okay, but all right, well, COVID wasn't, to a guy my age, it's like COVID was 2 weeks ago. How? That wasn't supposed to be that funny. Yeah. How did he get so good so quick? How's he doing these level homes? Okay, because I pay attention. There's a lot of realtors that follow the show. We've spoken at a few real estate things just on some mindset stuff, but it's like, how have you gotten there? And as we're sitting here, I've heard you take ownership for a young agent not getting the right information, and that's why the deal went sideways. You didn't point the finger. I've heard you take the ownership, take the responsibility, then find a solution, maybe find a mentor. Maybe you took something from a Coach Bird or this guy or that guy, but, how does that come into play? What was, you're in better shape. Your business is going better because more people are enjoying the experience and you're getting those referrals. And man, it got me excited. And just to share, when a few weeks ago, I got a message from somebody on the insurance deal that said, hey, tell Courtney thanks for recommended that. It's going to take care of us like this. And I was like, okay. So we recommended something and it played out well for the customer. In the beginning, there were times that, I don't really want to promote something extra or do this or this. But it sounds like with the Holman Group, you get everything up front. Like you're giving that customer that experience. So if somebody comes in and meets with you to set up a listing, what would that process look like?
Well, so as far as our process, we were talking about this before, like simplifying and all that. I love the people that are in my industry. There's a lot of realtors if you actually Google the like approval rating of real estate agents, we're actually lower, if you didn't know, than like personal injury attorneys. We're like scum of the earth for a lot of people, but there's a lot of great real estate agents. But one of the things that as we were making, before end of last year, going into this year, we wanted to, improve our presentation and process with clients and especially sellers. We do a lot of, we're we do more listing side stuff than we do buyers. I preface saying a lot of realtors are great because one of the things I think a lot of realtors have trouble with is they literally go into someone's house, most time with a big old binder. It's like huge. It's like that. It's like big, huge binder. And they just slap it down and start going over stuff about themselves or either themselves or their company, especially like big companies. It's like, boom, here's this big old binder, baby. Here's what we do, right? Well, what we do is it's very, I wouldn't say necessarily process focused, but it's very focused on like that seller's journey, right? They're selling homes. The home is it's like that Starbucks over there. That's the product, right?
Mm-hmm.
But really what they're selling or buying is generally like a next step. They're either having kids or kids moving out or they're getting a divorce or someone died or there's something happened most of the time or they wouldn't move, especially with interest rates being higher now. Like a lot of people that have like a 2.5, a lot of them are definitely not moving.
Yeah.
But, and so we go in and it's more based on things like, what is your motivation to sell this home? Why do you really want to sell the home? What's your timing to sell the home? Like, how do you want to sell it quick or do you want to, I hate when like, especially old dudes always are like, well, why don't we just price it way up here and we can come down later? It's what timing, if they're like, hey, we want to sell it quick. Can't do that. Things like what they're looking for from us, like what's important to you as if you're working with a realtor, what's important to you?
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time feedback's important. And most of the time that's the funniest when you ask that question. Now, this one agent from wherever back in the day, 20 years ago, they lied about this, and it takes 20 minutes and you're like, okay, cool. Next question.
Yeah.
But it really gets down to the nitty gritty. Then we quickly go over what we do. We really don't, I think it's different, very different about our experiences. We don't spend that much time talking about what we do. Whereas I think a lot of realtors go in and we call it like, in like dating, they call it, what do they call it? Love bombing, where it's like when people are dating, like let's say a guy and a girl go on a date and the girl's sitting there and the guy's like, well, I just think you're the prettiest. I have all these things to offer. It's kind of like that. That's what a lot of realtors do. So we very quickly go over what we do, especially like some of the programs that we offer, that kind of stuff, if it's applicable to their motivation and timing. That makes sense. And then pricing, obviously, where you should price a home based on how quick and why you want to sell it. And then another thing is like, it only takes, for instance, last week went on a listing appointment and my appointment took about 40 minutes and they're like, is that it? I'm like, yeah, pretty much it. And they're like, well, this other agent was here for 2.5 hours. I'm like, doing what? Like, why? And they're like, I don't know. They had all these things and they were showing me all this stuff. And I'm like, well, I didn't say what you see is what you get, but I'm like, it's really simple if you're pricing things right, if you're, packaging it properly, if you're doing all that stuff. And so, like for selling a home, that's the and then there's next steps of like actually doing the media and how we do that. But yeah, that's like, why would you spend and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, there's other things you could be doing in that time. Right. And, yeah,
Maybe getting back and getting started selling the house.
Yeah, that's right. Getting to it. And we ask that, and that's part of like the system work is just, and you want those clients to know that you respect their time, respect your time. And you're not a person you're not a person who is like, shouldn't say love bomber, but you're not like a lingerer.
Right.
Like, you go to a party somewhere and there's this one guy or gal and you've talked for about 20 minutes. And they're like, all right, I'm going to go talk to someone else.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to be
right.
Your perception as an agent or as any sort of role where you're like financial advisor, insurance, all that stuff. You want them to know that you're helpful, you're prompt, and you're not like a love bomber.
I mean, if I'll give you an example from an insurance perspective, I'm on the phone the other day we call it fact-finding call. Some people call it discovery call. So I call it a fact-finding call. So I like to do those because I like when people answer the phone and whatever happens, it's enjoyable to me at this point. You know, it used to be nerve. Yes. Sometimes I share, but I did screenshot one of my responses the other day. I got a big F you, but
That's all right.
that made me smile. Yeah, somebody knows I'm here. So I make a fact finding call.
Yep.
Talk to this guy. We built some rapport. I get the information, find out about his spouse, medical history, all the stuff we need to go. And I like to look at my phone. It was 4 minutes and 48 seconds at that point. And he said, "That's it?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, the last guy took like 30 minutes going over all these options." And I said, "I would rather get your information, go to work for you, bring you back your options this afternoon than take up more of your time." So if you showed up and we're going over listing the house and you're efficient up front in your initial thing, I mean, that sets the tone, right? I mean, that's what I'm seeing. And I know you well enough. And after people watch this show, they're going to know that the Holman Group is a friendly group, is a group that, you know, we're going to build rapport. We're going to build that relationship because, hey, if you're doing a great job, you should be compensated well, and everybody should recommend the good people.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
And we tell people too, I mean, and that's the thing, right? Is it's you know, we tell them up front, like a lot of these, you know, a lot of the people, they go in and just do all that stuff, and it doesn't really get to like a logical end, right? And what we do is, you know, when, like, for instance, when the commission conversation or whatever it is that comes up, right? Then you can say things like, well, hey, look, you know, we're simple. We try to get the job done. And we even tell people, like, when it comes to fees and commission, like, we're, you know, if we're selling a $1.5 million home, like, would you rather sell it quickly, pay us, get it done and move on? Or would you rather it linger and just float into the nether? Right. And so we try to be like simultaneously calm and easygoing, but also not necessarily aggressive, but also, you know, we get the job done.
But you should be.
Yeah. And people are,
Especially if that 1.5 is not at a 2.5 rate.
Yeah.
that's right.
That's going to cost them a little bit more by negotiating. Let's get the stuff done. But you do pay for what you get sometimes too. With all that being said, you know, we've established some business stuff here. We've talked about some finance. And one thing is, tell us a little bit more about that football story, playing in front of all those people. And let's talk a little more about you towards the end part of the show.
Absolutely.
So tell us about who did you line up against and who knocked you out and who did you knock out?
So played at Madison Academy for a couple years in high school, and then Bob Jones. Funniest story of my entire football career. I've played at Florida State. I've played all the teams that were in our conference, like, you know, Cincinnati, Memphis, Temple, all those. At that time, Temple was ranked, and, you know, Syracuse, all these different big, like Wisconsin, all these huge teams, right? Played against Melvin Gordon, Dalvin Cook, all those guys. The hardest I was ever hit in my entire career, thought I was dead, was a 5'6" offensive lineman from Plainview High School. I wish, like, now that I'm older, I wish I could figure out who it was, because
we may find it on this.
It was like, you know, when in football they call it like a crackback.
Yeah.
So it was one of those little plays where it was like a reverse or something.
Yeah.
You know, running around. And this is actually when I was at Madison Academy. I guess when I was a freshman or something.
Mm-hmm.
I was I played like defensive end.
So what year was that, you think?
I guess 2010.
Okay, so 2010, we're looking for the line.
High school.
The guard, that kid.
But I just remember being like, I remember like I was running and then just lights went out. I'm like, what? I get up and I literally was like, I get up and I was like, what just happened? Like it was one of those where, you know, you watch like combat sports, like UFC, and after those guys get hit like that, they're just like, or even they'll start fighting back, and it's just like, I don't even know what's going on. So that was a funny one. I guess from college, you know, college career was good. I think that playing down in another thing too is like being down at USF in Tampa. Like I tell people all the time, playing down there, not only just the basic stuff, like being an athlete makes you structured, it makes you tough, it makes you to where you can, you know, all that stuff. But I think living in that area like living in Tampa as a kid from Huntsville, like the world just opened up. Like I remember going down there and being like, oh, going on a visit. I went on a visit to Minnesota and USF. Those were my two that I was going to play for. And I went to Minneapolis. It was like 15 degrees or something, or negative 15 degrees, cold.
Mm-hmm.
And the next weekend it was like 80 degrees in Tampa. And we went to Hulk Hogan's beach bar for a recruiting trip.
Yeah.
Like, sign me up. But I think living in Tampa as an 18-year-old kid that's from here, I think it really helped me understand like how to, especially as like in a real estate business now or other things, being able to relate to people from all different walks of life and not just, so many people struggle with like, okay, if someone's different in a lot of different ways, they struggle with building rapport with that person. I was like, man, I lived in damn Tampa. We were out doing all kinds of stuff. I was out too late and up too early. And it's just kids from all over. Like our team was, from all over Florida and all these different places. So I think that was
different than Madison Academy.
Oh gosh, yeah. And you take it like, I mean, I love the MA and even Bob Jones. It was a good school, but and you go down to Tampa and you're like playing with kids from like damn Miami, South Miami, real, real athletes, right? And because Florida is a recruiting hotbed for everywhere, and every sport, So that was a lot of. I think that was good for me to be that young and be in such a different environment, But yeah, the funny is, I mean, and then the games and stuff, that was all like playing in Florida State. Those are all really fun. But I think the funniest story from playing, and it was actually the same thing, because you don't really remember, you don't remember the good games that much.
Right.
You do.
Oh, I got it.
But you're like, games where I played linebacker, so games where it's like, oh, I had, 10 tackles this game. That's cool. But
you were just doing your job.
Yeah, you remember the bad stuff.
I get it.
More so. Kid from Plainview High School when I was at MA, and some random dude that played at Temple when I was at USF. I guess it was my second year there. I was on the kickoff team, and he was on the kick return team. And Temple was ranked. They were like, at that point, they were like number 8 in the country or something. They were like top 10 football team.
Yeah.
And we were good. We had won, I think, 6 or 7 games, and it was like the 8th or 9th game of the year. So we were both good teams, and we're playing each other in the conference. It was in Tampa at Raymond James. We played our games at where the Bucks play, which is really cool. And I'm running down the field, basically the same situation. The dude runs, it's like a crackback reverse kickoff return where they run and then they hand it, they flip it to the other guy and he runs the other way. Dude killed me. I literally was running, same thing, and I fall down, and the side of my helmet like broke. Like literally the little nuts and bolts that like screw it all in were broke. What is it with this? Like most people don't get, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I got up quick, had no clue where I was, and started walking to the Temple sideline. And I remember one of my teammates he was on the kickoff team too. His name's Danny. He's a very interesting character.
Yeah.
Super hard working and stuff, but like real kind of like sort of like a loud personality. He literally comes over. He's like, man, what you doing? I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, we over there. I'm like, oh shit. All right. Start going, and I'm like, that one was actually a concussion. The one from before probably was too, but that one, and this was as like the protocol and all that started getting more serious.
Sure.
The trainer was like, you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I'm like, I'm fine. I can go play right now. And he's like, you just walk to the other, like the other side of the, so yeah, basically both my funny stories were like, I mean, a lot of good things, but the funny stories are when you just get crushed and you're like, Well, at Florida State, when I was starting my first game, we had to run by their team, like by the Florida State team to get back into the locker room. And I remember being so like, because I looked over at their offensive line.
Yeah.
And I was like an outside, like a hybrid between outside and inside.
Okay.
I rushed the passer and played Will. And their left tackle, back in the day, they don't do it as much now, but back in the day, like Warmack at Alabama started pulling his shirt up. You see these big bellies? Well, this dude at Florida State, he had his shirt pulled up, but he had a 6-pack. And he was like 300 and something pounds on the scouting report. And I literally remember getting in the locker room and we're about to start. And I looked at, you know, the other dudes, because, you know, you sit by whoever they set it up in the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I'll see this dude has a six pack. He's the left tackle. He's their tackle. I'm like 220 pounds at the time. I don't even have a six pack. I got a little something. I'm like, yeah, this should be fun. Should be good. See how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. I could tell you, I went on, and I've never said this on the show. I went on a baseball recruiting trip, and the school I went to said, okay, we know you like football. And they took me down to the locker room, and it was a Division I school.
Yeah.
I go down to the locker room, and there were 2 or 3 offensive linemen, to the best of my knowledge, I remember, hanging out in the locker room. And I looked at them, and I went, nah, I'm just going to play baseball. If I have to get around that guy to get, hell, what am I going to do with him?
Yeah. A guy named Eric Lee. He was at USF when I was there. He played D-end. He was my locker buddy when I was a freshman, and he's still huge. Like we're still connected on social media and stuff. But at the time, he was 6'6", 290 something with like 6% body fat. And I roll in. I'm from freaking Bob Jones. I'm like, I thought I was cool.
Yeah.
I was hot shit here. And I get down there and I'm like, this dude literally, and if you look him up, like Eric Lee, if you look him up, he played for the Patriots for a few years.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was just like the specimen. And those were a few of the moments where I was kind of like, this is a different world.
Mm-hmm.
This is a different, you get to a level, but it's like anything, you're at the top percent of something, and then, there's always a different percentage where you're like, well, this is the next top percent, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where,
yeah. I feel that. I didn't have the courage you have to go out there and battle with them. So I just stuck to hitting the little ball. But you've had those experiences. You're still a young man, and your knowledge and your maturity, the Holman Group opportunity, you're looking at things, those experiences, you've been able to turn things into opportunities. Is there anything that we should be on the lookout for you, or like, is there things you're looking at, or?
Yeah, I think so. One of the things when I got started in real estate, I think it's probably, real estate's a great industry. It's a great business, but I think, I never got into real estate to be a realtor for, that 20, 30, that really long period. Right. And so, I wanted to be a person and that's really why we kind of made those changes lately. I wanted to become, known as an entrepreneur and really be a business person, and someone who in the local community and, beyond in the future is doing good. And I really believe, especially starting early, I believe it's, expansive. So yeah, I'm actually looking into things when it comes to, commercial real estate. So we do a lot of commercial real estate already. We do a lot of we sell warehouses. We've sold gas stations. I have 2 or 3 gas stations going right now. And so there's all, being in real estate is kind of like, it's a very weird career, because you wake up in the morning and you're just like, some dude, this was last summer, some dude just calls and he's like, hey, can you guys sell a gas station? And we're like, heck yeah. I didn't even know what the Alabama Department of Environmental Management was. And people asking like, hey, what's the ADEM report? I'm like, the what? And so
I hear you.
Learn as you go, you learn things. And I look at it like, so we have the Holman Group, our residential real estate business. We're developing our Holman Group commercial business a little bit more this year. And same thing, being a little bit more intentional with like the relationships that you create. I was telling you the guy that, we've done some deals with, and there's opportunities there where if you do, I think doing a good job with opportunity brings in more opportunity. And we did a good job on that one opportunity. And so I start texting him. I'm like, hey, like this prospecting and sales.
Sure.
I mean, I know y'all are like kind of towards, and he's like, I think he's like almost 90 years old. Dude still has a deal wall in his office, like pending and actives and stuff. I'm like, I hope I have that energy when I'm that age. But I look at it as, I hit him up and I was like, hey, if there's anything y'all need us to do, like, I don't care if it's you need me to go take my phone and take a selfie at a building somewhere, or a video or whatever, just developmental opportunities. Because I think so many people in our industry, they look at it as, my job is to sell a house. My job is to sell a building. My job is to sell a gas station. I always looked at it as my real job is to build a big sphere of influence and create opportunities from that over time through the relationship. And so, yeah, we have our residential business here. We're developing the commercial stuff. Even like Austin Chandler, one of our agents, that he does really well. I mean, he's sold, he's sold $2.5 million buildings, and he's only been doing it for a couple of years.
Mhm.
So, but then you take those opportunities and you keep doing the right thing with the people, and then we put them in the list. And it's like every time we're hitting those people up, it's like, hey, what can we do to help you?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, hey, do you have anything to sell? You should call me. It's like, hey, we were thinking, like, as an example, one of those people we work with, they have a big, real big warehouse out in the middle of freaking BFE nowhere. And we're like, what if we take like a video? What if we get our camera crew to go out there, take a huge video
Mm-hmm.
and try to advertise it for you,
Mm-hmm.
even though technically y'all are still the listing side, and, see what we can do. And they're like, oh yeah, that'd be great. Right. And so does that turn into anything? Maybe.
Yes.
But,
Yes.
But that's kind of how we look at it. So we have residential, commercial, and we're leaning into some stuff when it comes to what we talked about, athletics.
Yeah.
So I know we kind of hit on that before, but I think the business of athletics is changing.
Yeah.
Obviously, when people look at like NIL and all that stuff, but the business of athletics is not just football, what I play, but baseball, basketball, volleyball. There's, like I joke with people when people talk about this NIL stuff, like when I was playing, we literally got like $200 a week per diem, and mine got stolen from this big dude. He was an offensive lineman, and he'd come in my room and he'd be like, hey man, like, and I had support from my family here. So it wasn't like that money wasn't.
You didn't have to have.
Yeah, I didn't need it. And like this dude was huge, and he's like, hey man, like I know, you think you could give me some of that? And I'm like, yeah, just take it, man. But really, I'm like, this dude was, if I showed you a picture of him, you'd be like, oh, you'd give it to him too. But that was the case back then. But now you have athletes that are, able to build their own brand and all that. So that's kind of the third, we have our real estate, but it's a new thing that we haven't done too much yet, but we're kind of working on it.
Well, let me give you some, as sometimes when I'm doing the show, I will ask questions or give some feedback as if I was a customer, because why not?
Yeah.
Hearing that, you can do the residential and commercial and then the gas station. Okay. Personal story. We know realtors, and if I know you, I'm not talking about you probably because you're not watching the show, but you're not trying to get better because I know you. But it was like, I wanted to just talk to somebody about commercial property. How do I go about getting it? So I called the guy that helped me get the last house we bought.
Yeah.
And he gave me a phone number. Well, what I learned about at that time, if you're not pre-approved on a commercial deal, they're really not that interested. I was told, well, the price of the commercial deals are, $2, $5, $10 million deals. They're only doing maybe 1 or 2 a quarter. They're not going to put, So I sit back and I go, what if I could have went to the Holman Group and said, hey, thank you so much for helping me on the house, but I'm a small business owner and we're looking for warehouse space and we're looking for this. How does that work? Because as many people as I know, I just recently, is there a difference in license for residential and commercial?
There's not.
And that's what I just learned. And it's like, why the hell didn't somebody tell me that a long time ago?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a part of that a lot of people don't really know.
Right.
It's kind of like, and commercial. So commercial real estate is always in every city, and this is any business, right? There's always like there's, a handful of people that do a lot of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they sort through, they get a lot of phone calls and stuff. And so I'm sure they have their own process of like sorting through what's, worth it, what's not, what they think is legit, what they think is not. But at the same time, that's when Austin, one of our agents, and we did this deal, and we're like, this was the same, if not easier, right? Because it's a different kind of transaction. You're dealing with net operating incomes. You're dealing with,
It's necessarily not.
you're not dealing with as much emotion.
Well, yeah. I mean, the story is the home. It's a building.
And so I think, when people look at commercial real estate, you have to know when you're in that business, you have to sell. And there's actually a guy that I'm kind of looking to partner with who already he's sold some stuff here. But we were talking about it last week, and you're really in commercial real estate. You're not selling the product or even as much of like the residential is like that's their next step, that's their next journey in life. In commercial, it's more of like a narrative. Like you're selling, like, hey,
Yeah.
if your business, if you're a warehouse, if you're a shipping business, and your current warehouse is 10,000 square feet, and you have 40 employees, and you're getting all these orders in, well, a savvy commercial broker, without those people ever even calling them, will look at their business and say, you're getting all these orders in, in about a year, you're not going to be able to fulfill those orders unless you go ahead and be proactive now. And you get, you go get a 15,000, 20,000 square foot warehouse. You may need to go hire 15 people, 20 more people, but with basically 20 more people, now you're at 60, 75 people. Now you can fulfill, triple the orders in a bigger warehouse, and it's going to be a good tax write-off, and it's going to be good for your future. So that's where you have to have
and with all that money you're making, you're reinvesting into real estate. So there's even more tax benefits because you're not claiming it. And there's so many things that I wish I could go back to my 28-year-old self and just say, listen to what he knows and go back.
Baby.
Do that. But
which I've learned probably the past 6 or 7 months to a year has been huge. Before that, I wasn't. I was thinking that way, but not, not.
I talked to you back then, and I've talked to you now. It's different. It's different.
Yeah, you grow. You as you go.
But not as quick as most people don't evolve as quick as I've seen. And I'm not saying there was anything wrong with the way you were, but to see and hear, and then, as we kind of come to a conclusion for the show, we've talked about some things, we've looked at it, but here's a common theme that, I feel like, let's say the house comes out of escrow. You look at it as an opportunity. Athletics is changing. You've got an experience in that. Instead of somebody telling me, hey, NIL sucks. The transfer portal ruined the game. Coach Saban quit coaching because we'll get over it. Okay. Yeah. It's like things change. What about the guy that signed the Nike shoe contract before Jordan was a part of it? Like things change, things evolve. That's different. That's a big step in whatever, 80, whatever that was, about 20 years before you were born.
I saw a good ad about that too. The Air Jordan ad recently.
What'd you see? What was it?
It was like, so I guess they had banned it or tried to ban it or something. And it was like unbannable. And of course I'm like an advertiser. Like I love looking at good ads. And, so it was all these things that like wouldn't have happened if Jordan wasn't a thing. So all these interactions between people, all the transactions, all the relationships created. Like what if Air Jordan wasn't a thing? All these people would have been negatively impacted.
I can tell you, I have never thought about this. When I met with the guy that helped me kind of get started with this stuff, he looks at me and he goes, hey, Brian, you and Courtney don't really look like insurance agents. Yeah. I'm like, well, what does that mean? He said, well, you didn't come in here with khakis and a blue shirt and dress shoes. He said, and his story was he got up to speak at an event for insurance agents. And he's at the bar right after he speaks. And he goes, hey, guys, what'd y'all think of the speaker? And he goes, he was pretty good. And he goes, okay, anything? He goes, yeah. He's like, well, if you got to talk to him, what would you say? And he's like, well, I would have asked him about this part. And he said they had no idea he was the guy that spoke because he said I was dressed exactly like they were. My hair was combed exactly like theirs was.
Yep.
Your hair's a little different. I use what I got.
There you go. It's looking good.
But I see all these things that you do. And, if somebody meets you and they see this calm, confident, that didn't just happen. You've made your mistakes. You've experienced the bloody noses, right? I mean, I guess you're a quicker learner. Is that what it is?
I try to be. I think the main thing is and I know a lot of people say this kind of stuff, but really surrounding yourself with people that are not just that have done what you want to do or like aspire to do, but really people that you learn from. And like, it's a real humbling experience. Like the guy I was telling you about, who I did one of the big commercial deals of last year with. I'm the kind of person that, when I'm in business with people, I actively ask them like, what would you have rather us do.
Mhm.
So I go to him. I'm like, the deal's over. I'd literally just pull up at his office. And he ain't doing nothing that day. Half the days he's just hanging out. So I go and I'm like, as part of building our system,
Mhm.
we call it the framework,
Mhm.
the ecosystem. I'm like, what could I have done better? He goes, well, when we were talking about this deal, you were selling building, but you didn't really hit the right things. And that's where I learned like the narrative in commercial real estate. The narrative is like, this dude, he didn't even care about the building. He was trying to get a tax write-off. I didn't even know that until later. That's when I talked about it. And he's like, so basically if you would learn that, right, this would have gone a little bit smoother. In the future, it will. So I think, to say that, for me, it's like putting yourself around people that are excellent at what they do and even asking them how they do it, right? Like Andy McCloy, the guy I go to BCI, I go to the gym twice a week.
Yeah.
He's doing a lot of I noticed recently, he's doing a lot of really cool stuff on social media.
Mhm.
He has him and I can't remember the other dude's name, but they're doing coaching and helping gym owners.
Yep.
Right. And so at the gym the other day, I'm like, hey, when you guys do this, like, what are you doing? Like, what are they learning from you? And we talked for 20 minutes about, how they're different, but also what they're learning. And so I'm always looking, number one, to be surrounded and be around like just really good people. And number two, actively getting info from them, not in like a, what can you give me kind of way, but like I want to know if I see something, I think it's cool. I'm like, hey, and we're in totally different business. If you asked me to run a gym, I'd go up in there and be like, what are we doing?
Right.
We're in this boot camp.
Right.
I wouldn't know what to do.
Right.
But if they're doing, professional development for gym owners, then I think that's something it would be interesting to learn. What are those gym owners interested in? Are they interested in structure? Or are they interested in profitability? Are they looking for, do they even know what they're doing? Are they just coming to learn? And so like that, or like Tom Ferry coaching as a real estate coaching brand. I was in their teams coaching for a year, all of last year. And I learned a lot about like, what are the things we talked about earlier about realtors and stuff, like what are people looking for? And so I think it's just about putting yourself around. First 2 years, I was just like, I don't need no help. I got this. I'm good. And then you learn like putting yourself around the right people in the right situations at the right time is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I may be speaking out of turn here, but I don't think your business was financially struggling to force you to make that change.
No, it
I mean, let's be real.
Yes.
You were making money. You were doing okay.
Business was good.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
It's not like you were like, oh, I was on my last penny and I had to step up. No, you were already good.
Yeah.
You wanted to get better.
Yeah. Good to great. And that's, I know you mentioned earlier, not pointing fingers, but that's another one of our core values at the Holman Group. And that's the different thing, all the different things that we do is, we're thumb pointers. So
there we go.
Yeah. So it's like, you could sit around and be like, this person's an idiot. That person's dumb. This deal went sour because that agent's an idiot. Or you could be like, hey, let's say that person's new on the other side of a transaction. What if we just help them a little bit extra so that they don't have the opportunity to make that mistake? Stuff like that. And that really, surrounding yourself with, incredible people, building a huge network of good people. Not like some people, they're just interested in the number of the network. Ours is like building a big network of really good people. Like I play golf. So when I go play golf, I'm not just playing golf. I'm playing golf, but I'm really looking to get to know people. And like the guy I was telling you about that's doing some legal stuff for us, we play golf twice a month, right? And as soon as I needed something in that sphere, I just called him. So I didn't have to go and be like, oh, hey, who's the best for this? It was just kind of natural and organic.
Well, another thing that I'm going to point out, because you're not going to toot your own horn, is you didn't go ask anybody for anything that you didn't either go ahead and support their business or you had a business deal with, and then you went back and got additional feedback because, again, you wanted to evolve.
Yep, 100%.
You didn't just go, hey, Mr. Got Money, what do I do?
Right.
You went out and put yourself out there.
Yep.
So
we put it out there first. That's all. I mean, that's 100%. And sometimes it's kind of like some of the stuff we do is, I don't want to say too, we proactively look for ways to, like when you have a buddy, if you're a realtor, you have a buddy who's a financial advisor. One of the things we do, but a lot of people don't know this, but every financial advisor that we're close with, we're like, hey, all of your clients are going to want to know what their house is worth.
Mhm.
We will do that for you up front and send it to you. And you can literally present that when you go over their whole everything. And then obviously when that comes back, business comes back from it, but we're doing that up front. So most realtors be like, oh, that's a waste of time.
Could
Well,
be.
keep saying that, guy.
Yeah.
Saying that.
It could
and
be.
watch the Holman Group.
Yeah.
Just sit back and watch. Man, I'm looking forward to the next show and the next time because I see you know, and we didn't go into the faith part that much, but
Yeah.
but you're a man of faith, and that's something that you're growing with too.
It is. It's really, it's really, really foundational, I think, to just the nature of, like when you are a person of faith and you're in opportunities where you're dealing with other people, you really realize, hey, like, for instance, when we do our real estate, our residential trainings, I always think before we kind of set up what we're doing, like, okay, this guy's a dad.
Mm-hmm.
These people might have a kid soon. This lady has 2 kids, right? So there's all these different things going on. How can I, set something up here that's going to help them in their business, but also in their life, and that a lot of that is faith-based, because otherwise you're just like, here's all these people, we need to sell a bunch of houses, let's do it, and you're really just thinking of people in their best light, and trying to be a good example. And that's hard. Sometimes it's hard because sometimes you just want to be like, here you go, man. You gotta go get this.
Right.
But you have to remind yourself that those are people on a journey just like you are.
I'm gonna tell you something that I stole from a guest that they told me that they refer to that as they're walking in all the light they know.
Yeah.
And that's where they're at their journey. Like you
Yeah.
said,
100%.
that lamp shows the next step.
Yep.
It doesn't necessarily shine out there like some of those cool flashlights that we've had. But what would you say to somebody right now that you've got the Holman Group, and let's not just look at it as real estate. Let's look at it as young entrepreneur because you're still in your 20s.
Yeah.
What would you say to a guy that's looking for that opportunity as we conclude? Like, how would you encourage somebody right now?
I think the most encouraging thing you can do is really go, and that's what I tried to do, especially as like early last year, like I said, when I was, and you're right, like business was not bad at all, but I'm like, what if it could be really good? Really, really good. But I think the most important thing, obviously I'm a person of faith, so I meditate a lot. So I think the most important thing you can do is really try to learn a lot about yourself, right? Learn about what it is you're naturally good at, but then also learn about where you work best, right? So example, I'm a real estate agent. So obviously we have to do marketing. We have to do certain things that are out and about, but I'm also a little bit more introverted than a lot of people would probably think. So I know that during the week, I need at least 1 or 2 days pretty much at home, working from home, and kind of be in my own world. And that's where I develop like the programs. That's where I develop, the things that we're doing. And then we go out and kind of do it. So I think when you're new, you feel like, I know I did, you feel like you have to basically rip and duplicate or model like kind of what everyone else does. But then you start to realize as you go along, kind of like you said, with like what you're wearing or how you're doing it, like you realize that you can really create your own model, or your own, if you're in business, your own way of doing it. And naturally other people that are into that too want to do it with you. So I think that's, like I said, the daily routine, the, even like we talked about the gym, go to the gym, when I went back, I was like, hey, I know me well enough to know if I'm up here at this damn gym 6 days a week, killing myself, in about 3 or 4 months, that's going to take like a toll. And I'm going to start thinking, I know me well enough to know after a few months, I'm going to start thinking to myself, should I really be going? Like, what should I be doing? Whereas if I set it up, knowing myself, if I set it up and say, hey, 2 days a week plus golfing 2 days a week, that's 18. Now don't get it twisted. That's 18 holes a full round.
Walking.
Yeah. And in a cart. Yeah. I don't do, there's, yeah. But, setting up a life, like a lifestyle. I know a lot of people talk about the lifestyle entrepreneur thing, but setting up a life and a business and a way to do it that works for you. I think that's a lot of people don't do that. And they go out and they join these companies, these things, and they feel like they don't really have much of a say. And I think once I started doing that, business has been better, life is better, like just pretty much everything works better. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the big thing, is learning yourself and spending time doing that, right? Spending time doing the meditating. If you're into faith, right? Mm-hmm. Going to church and learning a little bit more about what it is that makes you. And that's helped me a lot, for sure.
Well, it's evident from this side of the table.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
And again, you weren't doing anything wrong when I met you, and you weren't, you weren't driving a vehicle that you could show up anywhere in. You had a nice vehicle, you had things, and it's like, wow, that guy's always looking at the opportunity.
Yeah.
But you understand yourself and what you need in order to be prepared to be in the right frame of mind, to have the mindset.
Yep.
So that's huge, guys, for you young guys and for people getting into it. I mean, that knowledge right there. If I could go back in time and say, hey, Brian, you don't have to say yes to every opportunity. Yeah. You can take some time for yourself. And
that's a big one.
It is.
You feel like I remember, like, you feel like you're missing something.
Yeah.
But sometimes missing something is okay if you're like, if that time that you spent, not necessarily alone, but maybe like, y'all have kids, like spending time with your kids, or there's so many things that people do that I think then they turn around and they're like you've definitely been to an event where you're like, why the hell did I even go to that? And you're like, there was, not that it was necessarily bad for everyone, right, but it just wasn't for you. And you might have noticed after the fact. So I try to be, intentional and be like, I ain't going to that. I know when I get there, I'm going to enjoy it, but then I'm going to come home and be like, that wasn't the best use of
That's it. You're just making your time the most valuable.
Yeah.
Just like your 40-minute meeting versus 2.5 hour meeting.
That's right.
That is. So thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it. I've been selfish. I've stolen some information. I'm gonna take some stuff from you and share it. So
yeah, appreciate you, man. I think this is really cool. And like I said, the studio and what y'all are doing, I think it's awesome. It's not easy. It's not easy to go out and, not just put yourself out there, but, put it all together. And I know the logistics of making it all work. It's
fun.
I know it's
right.
Fun.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it like you. It's an opportunity to do more.
Yeah. And connect with more people. Absolutely. So very cool. Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you. And thank you guys for watching Podcast on Wheels.